Hello guys, my name is Marco Landry and today I'll be talking about the installation process for some SharkSkinz bodywork on the 2018 Yamaha R3. So stay tuned and we'll start right now. Alright guys, so before we get started, I just want to mention a few things on why I selected SharkSkinz as the bodywork for my R3. First of all, I've seen a lot of people with that bodywork in the past. When they crash, they were able to keep riding and complete their track day. So the bodywork is very, very, very durable. Also easy to patch because it's fiberglass, it's easy to patch it. So to me, that was one big factor. Also, the service from i1 Moto is kick-ass. I've called them a few times, I've emailed them multiple times. They've answered all my questions, pre-sale, post-sales, all my questions were answered. They ship on time, very, very good service. So to me, that was a critical element in my decision factor as well. And the last reason why I've selected the SharkSkinz bodywork is because it's less components. So quite often the other vendors add multiple components. So they still have an upper and lower bodywork, but you still had to reuse some of the OEM parts, especially for the seats or the side of the bike. So to me, that was extra headaches, extra fasteners, extra weight, extra things that you need to take apart and reassemble when you're at the track. So with the SharkSkinz, you have your upper, your lower, and your tank and seat in one piece of fiberglass. So it's a lot easier to take apart, a lot faster to get access to the internals of the bike. So to me, that was a key decision factor as well. And overall, I thought the look was like super, super nice. It looks very nice. So those are the decision factors that I took into consideration when I decided to go that route. So having said that, now I'm going to talk about the tools needed to do this work. I'm going to talk about mounting everything on the bike, and also we might have to do a bit of creative thinking and create some brackets, or at least readjust some brackets in order to mount everything properly. And also I'm going to talk about the different fasteners as well, because one downfall of SharkSkinz is that the fasteners that came with the bike, I don't think this is what I was looking for. I was expecting a bit more in terms of fasteners. I've been using the Zeus fasteners on my R6 with a lot of success over the year. Very happy with this. So I might change the fasteners that came with the SharkSkinz to some Zeus fastener. So we'll see. I'll start the assembly, and as we progress, we'll be able to make that judgment call. All right, folks, so this is a fairly easy process to install the fairing kits. You will need obviously a drill in order to drill the various holes to put the fasteners in. I might need the self-centering punch. Quite often when I install fairing kit, I need I'd like to have the needle file set. It just allows you to make sure that everything is smooth and nice. The step drill is key or critical in this case. It works much easier than the regular drill bits. I also have some drill bits in order to drill a few things in metal if needed, or just to readjust the holes properly. X Allen keys will be required as well to for fastening the M6 bolts on the body. And in my case, I think I'm going to need a rivet nut kit as well to install a few rivet nuts because I don't want to have various type of fasteners. And obviously you will need a riveting kit as well. There's no more plastic on the bike. As you can probably tell, I've changed my fairing stay here. This one is sold by i1 Moto, a lot lighter than the OEM one. The only thing that you need to keep in mind is that when you replace this, you will need to find two nuts that will fit there, because the other two nuts are integrated in the OEM bracket. So you can reuse your bolts, but those nuts are extra, so you need to find out a set of nuts that will fit on that tread and that will hold this in place. Earlier I told you that I was gonna use a riv nut as well. So this is where I use a riv nut. There was originally the threaded stud that was coming out, and in order to make this work with the bike, I had to put a nut on top of the fairing, and all the other fasteners were bolts, and I had one nut there, so that was just a bit annoying for me. So I decided to replace this. So I dremeled this out, and I drilled this out, and then installed a riv nut there so that I would have the ability to use an M6 bolt like all the other fasteners on the bike as well. So the other thing I did in order to set this up properly is that at the tail of the bike, once you remove everything, this piece of plastic here obviously has to stay there, and the tail cover will cover a portion of this. But in the back here, that was sticking out quite a bit here, so I just took a saw. I sawed this part here, same thing here, so that you have a nicer finish. In order to make this more secure, I've zip tied the tail back in, because obviously that was a bit loose. With a few zip ties, you're able to clean this up and make this a bit tighter. So in order to save a bit of time, I'll do a few things off camera, just to make sure that the video is not too long. I've already pre-drilled the holes for the base or the seat base. So what you do for this part is that you can drill two holes at the top. They have to line up at the proper location. There's two areas there on the frame where there's already some treads. So you line this up with that portion, and also the front here has two other holes as well, and that's gonna be attached on the side of the bike, or the frame of the bike. So there's already two holes there that were there before for the previous plastic that were on the bike. So obviously we're just leveraging these holes to make sure that we can secure this properly in place. So I'm going to mount this now, and I'll be back and we'll talk about next step. What you need to keep in mind when you mount the two bolts in the back here, I'm using some M6 bolts because that's what will fit there. That's already pre-threaded. No, that was the OEM stuff that was there, so you're not changing anything. So this is an M6 bolt, but you have to be careful because the hole is not very deep, so there's not a ton of room behind this. So I've used an M6, which is 1.25 inches, so it's very short. You can see right here that it's fairly, there's not a lot of room. So you have to make sure that your bolt is not going to be too long and will collide or will just push on the frame below. So this is something that you need to keep in mind. Your next step will be to install the tail of the bike. So in my case, the tail was already pre-drilled with some holes directly from i1 Moto. So it's already drilled with all the holes to attach the shield. So you can see that all of this has been done. If you don't get this done, obviously you'll need to do it yourself. Because it's done in my case, we're just gonna go ahead and install this tail on the bike right now. And when you install this, you'll see that it's a bit tight, so you'll need to stretch it a little bit and figure out a way to put this on without adding too much pressure. So once you have the tail on, you will need to drill some holes on the side here, and this hole needs to line up with the hole that you've drilled before, and also line up with that anchor point on the frame. Just align it with a dimple, and that's where I drilled. And in this case, we'll use some M6 bolts on both sides to secure this in place. All right, so now we've mounted the bolt here, and I did the same thing on both sides. I'm using again an M6 bolt here, and I am again connecting the tail with the base to the frame. And you can see the back is still very loose, and that will be solidified when we attach the top here. Also, when we put the draft shield underneath here, it will sandwich everything in place, and it's going to be a lot more solid. But don't be worried if you see that it's loose when you when you've completed that step. Okay, we are now ready to install the upper fairing. Okay, so the upper fairing simply slides in place here. So when you're doing this, what I like to do is take both sides and stretch it open a little bit and make sure it doesn't get tangled into your cables. That I had put the upper fairing before installing the seat and the tank part. So the reason for this are because of these tabs here that are on both sides of the bike. So those tabs will go under the tank cover. So basically what I had to do for this fairing is drill a hole here and drill this hole here. And this is why I was saying earlier that I had to replace the stud that was coming out with a rib nut. That was a lot easier. And as you can tell here, I'm quite happy because I'm able to put my frame slider in the back portion as opposed to the front, and I won't have to drill anything yet unless I decide I need to change them and put them here in the front of the bike. The other thing that you have to drill as well are the holes for the fairing stay. So, and the windshield. So most of them are marked. For some reason, there's one small dimple here that I don't really know what it's for. And you have your 4 holes for the shield. So those are there, and then you have the 2 holes that connect to the fairing stay. On this side, for some reason, there's no dimple here, so there's only 1 hole. So I mean, you probably need to figure out where you want to put your second hole. In my case, I don't think I'm going to go that route. I think I'll go with the D-clips in front. I got the same setup in my R6 here, but you can see I have these D-clips in front. It's a lot easier. I just can simply unclip this, and I've fabricated my own bracket underneath here to make this work. But for the R3, there is a bracket from Northern Motorsport that allows you to screw that bracket on top of your fairing stay, and there's a D-clip attachment in the middle. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to patch up these holes. I'll do a bit of fiberglass, patch those holes, and use the D-clip instead. I think it's going to be a much nicer look and cleaner look. I'm going to bolt everything in place now, and then I'll put the tank cover, seat cover back on, and we'll be able to finish the assembly by putting the lower fairing on the bike. So this is the tail of the bike, as you can tell here. So what I did is that I drill the 3 holes here. You can see here there's a pilot hole. I didn't use that pilot hole because the bracket for the fastener is a bit wider. I didn't want the bracket to be in the rounded corner, so I shifted this a bit more left to make sure that I had a nice and flat surface, so it's easy to assemble and disassemble the fasteners here. I'm gonna put the same thing on the side of the bike as I have here, and I'll keep the smaller one for the tail of the bike. So you can see here the tail as the smaller one that were pre-installed by I1 Motors. Guys, we're making some progress here. So we have the upper has been mounted, we have the tank cover, we have the tail that's assembled. So now the next step is to put the lower fairing on. And the lower fairing, no, in my case, came pre-drilled with some holes on the side here. So on both sides, you can see here, there's holes on both sides that will attach to here with the quick release fasteners. The only thing that you have to drill is on the right hand side, there's an area here that's recessed. So in my case, if I remove this here, you can see there's a rubber bushing that I've inserted in there. So I took my step drill bit, I drilled and I inserted this rubber bushing, and on top of the bushing I'm going to put this little spacer. The only reason why I do it this way is because when the bodywork is moving, it doesn't put some crazy amount of pressure on that pivot point there, or that mounting point. So this is the only reason why I do this. You certainly don't have to do this. So once you have drilled that hole, basically the only thing that you need to do is just slide this underneath here, come here and just put this on the side, and then you can mount this with your quick release fasteners. And that's basically it, guys. So the next step will be to do the fender. So when you start the installation process for the front fender, you will need to drill 4 different holes. So 2 on one side, 2 on the other side. And what I did in this case, when I was using my step drill bit, I went slightly wider in order to install some of the OEM hardware. So in this case, I've reused the grommet that was on the front fender of the OEM front fender. So you will put your grommet there, you'll put another grommet there, and what's going to happen for this, this front grommet, you will install the metal spacer on top after that. So that's fairly easy to do for this portion. The back one, you will install your grommet, and after you install your grommet, you need to put this clip-on in place. So you slide your clip-on on top, and it has an area on the back where you can tread. So the threaded portion will go on the inside of the fairing. Once all of this is installed, you simply put this little metal sleeve or spacer in between, and that will give you some flexibility on your bodywork when the front when the forks are just like twisting a bit. So the final result will look like this, where you have the grommet and the spacer, and in this case you have the grommet, the clip, and the spacer in between. So now that we have this done, I'm going to just slide this on the front, and we will proceed with the mounting of the front fender on the bike. All right, so the front fender is installed. That worked quite well. This specific bolt here doesn't have the same size of X bolt. What I had to do is just for testing purposes, I put this one in, so it's about 1.5 inches. I'll go to the store tomorrow, get something with the same cap in the same X pattern, internal X pattern as this bolt, and I should have the same on both sides. It's going to look much better, obviously, and it's going to be a lot easier from a maintenance point of view to have the same size. It's pretty cool. I mean, look, the size here is awesome because I can put my tire warmers with no issues, and also didn't want that bolt to be too long so that it would get caught into the tire warmers. So it's nice and clean, fits properly. Same thing here. This bolt is not too long. You can see here it doesn't protrude out. All right, so I've managed to remove the old D-ring connectors, the small D-ring connectors that came in from I1 Moto. And I replaced them with the bigger quick release connectors from Pro Bolts. It's a lot easier to connect or to grip the back with them. So what I had to do on the R3 is that I had to drill a different set of holes for the rivets. So you can see that no, these holes here are from the previous receptacle for the quarter release quick fastener. I installed a pro bolt after that, and I had to drill 2 different holes because I didn't want to do the fiberglass right away, because I might change these quick release fasteners to a different model later on. I'm not sure about the quality of the Pro Bolt product yet, so before I patch up the fiberglass and try to do something different, I figure I would leave myself an option here. So this is not really showing up when I lift the fairing. Everything's going to be covered, and I mean, it's not very sexy, but no one else will see this in the background, so I should be fine. And again, just so that everyone understands here, so this is what was used before, and now I'm using this one here. So you can see that the holes obviously don't line up. So this one is much wider than this one. But in the future, if I decide to change it, this one, the original Zeus fastener receptacle, or that bar here, has the same space or the same dimensions for the hole. So that's why I didn't patch it up. So if I decide to use this one, I will be able to reuse the side holes there. So I don't have to do any fiberglass yet. Once I decide what I want to do, I can fiberglass everything up and re-drill the holes if needed. But for now, I'm happy with this. It looks clean. It's easy to assemble. All right, guys. So the other thing that I did as well on the right side of the bike is that bracket here at the bottom that's attaching on the lower portion of the bike. This one here, the bracket that's there is not angled properly, so it's hard to say or hard to see, but behind this bolt here, I had to extend this a bit because I could have rejigged that bracket to fit properly. What I did is I put a little spacer in there, so that spacer just gives me enough room to come and grab the side of my fairing here. So again, the only thing you need to do in order to make this work, and you don't need to change the bracket, is put a spacer between the body and that bracket. So it's probably about, I would say maybe half an inch bracket there. And that allowed me to push or extend that bracket outside here, and it's grabbing properly with the fastener. Right, so now on the lower fairing, on the other side, there's a bolt that's holding the fairing in place. On this side, normally what I end up doing, and I've been doing this on my other bikes for years, that I normally drill a hole here, and I grab this bracket here on the bike, on the frame, and I just zip tie this together. In this case though, I'm trying to avoid a zip tie because it's quite annoying to have to cut and put a new zip tie every time. I'm going to try to find a way to put a quick release in here, and I think I'm just going to put like a metal bracket. I'm gonna create a bracket that allows me to grab this metal piece and bend it so that it follows the bodywork here, and I'm just gonna have a quick release fastener to attach this side. There's not a lot of pressure. I just want to have it in place so that it's nice and sturdy when the wind is pushing it. So I have quite a few brackets I've collected over the years, so I'll try to see if I have something that might fit in there. It looks like this bracket here will actually work, and it's light, it's fairly solid. I'm going to do some measurement. I'll bend it so that it fits there properly, and also after that I'll start drilling. And what I'm hoping I can accomplish is take one of these receptacles from Pro Bolt and rivet it on top of that middle bracket and drill the proper holes, obviously, and then I can use just a quarter release fastener in order to attach the fairing to this bracket. Not sure if it's going to be long enough, but if it's not, then I'll just put a rivet nut, and I'll use a rivet nut in order to attach the body to this middle plate. Alright, so this is kind of funny, but in order for me to bend this properly, I've leveraged this little thing here, and I've created the shape of the fairing and the bracket. So now I'll just know exactly that this is the length I need, so I'll bend it here, and then once I'm done, I'll be able to follow this shape, and I should have something that should be close enough to work with. And it's definitely not exact science, so I'm okay if it's not 100% perfect. I can readjust and tweak after that. All right, so that should be close enough. Let's see if it fits, and then I'll be able to cut it the right length. All right, so what you're seeing here is the inside of the fairing. This is where the bracket is touching or should touch the bodywork. So what I did is that I've assembled the bracket securely on the bike. And then with the bodywork on, I put this, I just took a marker and basically drew the outline of the bracket, so that now I know where the bracket is. I'll be able to know where to drill my hole. What I'm gonna do on top of this, just to be certain I'm drilling at the right location, I'm gonna take my clip from earlier, put it on here, and go at a place where I know it's going to be pretty solid, so I can still anchor it on both sides here, just so you can see a bit closer here, so you can see that I'll be able to have a rivet on this side and this side, and I'll have my hole in the middle to attach the D-ring. So I know this is a good spot, so what I'm going to end up doing is that I'm going to drill the hole right here. So this is where my main hole will be, and the pilot holes will be here, so I'll do it on this side as well, just to be safe. So here we go. So what I'm gonna do now is that I'm gonna drill these holes, and once this is drilled, I'll be able to just put a little marker dot on the bodywork, and I'll be able to transpose that hole at the right location here. So, all right, time to start drilling the bracket to attach the fastener or the receptacle. So the first two holes will be for the rivet, and the third bigger hole will be for the D-ring fastener itself. So I'm gonna punch this to get some alignment here. The reassembly process now and see if that's going to work, and then I'll start drilling the holes on the bodywork once I've remeasured this once more. So it's all installed. It looks, I think it looks good. It's definitely a lot more solid than just having zip ties or having nothing at all. So I think it was a good investment of my time to do so. The only thing that you need to keep in mind is that when you are going to connect this, I had to use a shorter D-ring clip here. So you can see here, this one's not the same color, it's a silver one that I'm using. And this is the one that I'm using for the rest of the bodywork, and you can see the length difference. So it's a bit shorter than the clips on the bike. But yeah, overall I think it's it's definitely a good investment of my time, and I'm quite happy with it. So that's the bracket. The only thing so far that I'm not satisfied with, because everything else has been assembled, but the only thing that I'll have to double check now and do a little bit more testing is that you can see this bracket in the bodywork here. There's a gap in between the two. So I only have one bolt on this side, and I also have one bolt on this side. But if I try to just screw this more, or either one of these bolts, if I try to screw them a bit more, I'm afraid that I'm going to start bending the bodywork a bit too much. I know that fiberglass is flexible, but I think that's going to be quite a stretch here. You can see in order to close this gap, it bends quite a bit. So by bending it quite a bit like this, it also means that my windshield is going to be even more difficult to fit on there. So what I'm going to do again is really to remove the fairing stay from i1 Moto, install the OEM fairing stay, and see if it's a better fit. If it's a better fit, I'll get rid of this one and I'll buy another aftermarket option. So I'll report back in a different video on this topic because it's getting quite lengthy, but stay tuned and I'll report back. Okay, so everything is done. Bodywork is phenomenal. The quality is top notch. The alignment is bang on. So quality is number one. You've heard me before. I've been complaining about the D-clips. So the D-clips that came with the bodywork from i1 Moto, I'm not a fan, but I'll leave this up to you again to decide if it makes sense for you. I was hopeful that the D-clips from ProBolt would resolve all of my issues, but after mounting and unmounting the bodywork quite a few times, it turns out that the ProBolt fasteners were even worse. So after doing all this assembly, replacing the fasteners, I was super excited, super hopeful that it was going to work properly. It turns out that these fasteners, they break easily. So once you apply a bit of pressure on that D-ring here, they break. So after a while, they don't stay connected. So you can see that this top part here is supposed to be there. I've tried squeezing them in to make sure they would stay properly fitted, but as soon as there's a bit of pressure, that D-ring becomes loose, and then after that your fastener is done. So I've went through probably about 6 or 7 fasteners. I even ordered some new fasteners from ProBolt, and they gave them to me free of charge as a replacement. I got them, and the same thing happened after a couple of tries. So I've disconnected a few times to make sure everything was working properly. As soon as you apply pressure on that top of the D-ring, it disconnects from the 2 holes in the fastener itself. So I would not recommend the ProBolt quick release fasteners. I'm gonna now order some Zeus fasteners. I should have done this from day one. I was placing an order with ProBolt, so that's why I got these. I was hoping that they would be the same quality of the Zeus fasteners, but it turns out that the Zeus fasteners are so much better, like far better quality than these. So I'm going to replace all the fasteners with Zeus fasteners on the bike. So I'll do the mounting point between the upper and lower. I'll do the same thing for the tail. I'll also do the same thing for the draft shield in the back as well. So all the fasteners will now be the same. They'll all be the Zeus fasteners. So I'll definitely create a new video on this, and I'll post this as soon as I get these fasteners in. So the other thing that I will have to investigate a bit more is that fairing stay. So where the upper fairing connects to the fairing stay, as you noticed earlier, it doesn't really fit properly. So before I get the Northern Motorsport mounting bracket, I will test this with the OEM fairing stay and see if the fit is better. If it is better, then I'll just simply replace the OEM stay with something else. So stay tuned for this one. I'm definitely going to post a new video on this as well. And that's it for now. So hopefully the video was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below. And if that video was helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. There's going to be plenty more videos like this that will be published in the next few weeks. So stay tuned and we'll chat soon.